Wow.
Graduates in December. Call the meeting to order. And so, did you guys get a chance to look at last month's minutes? Motion to approve the minutes, anybody?
I motion to approve.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Tim, Kara, thanks. All in favor? All right, good deal. So, and then don't have any visitors as far as.
Well, we none are visitor comments. I would ask, Mr. Chair, we have
Yes.
Douglas Hill, if we could just flip Douglas Hill on the round table, take Douglas Hill first, since we do have guests to
Let's
speak
do
to
it.
on that, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
So I'm gonna bring those folks on. This is Liz Austin and Joel Oliver.
Okay, I didn't
I've
realize they were
heard
there.
from some of
Alright.
these folks before, so they're just gonna be promoted up the panelist here to come on screen to talk about Douglas Hill redevelopment. I'll start with a bit of process, so you're aware. The council has now in front of it the zoning ordinance, which would change the zoning of the Douglas Hill redevelopment area. The TIF commission had its hearing last night, and we anticipate action on the TIF commission to take a recommendation on November 10th. The council has, I don't want to say paused, but set up a calendar for the legislative action. So the actual reading of the ordinances, their deliberations as council, sort of post that November 10th date to let the TIF commission recommendation line up with zoning. That's where the November 12th date, the deadline for boards and commissions to provide input comes out of, right? So we have all the boards and commissions, and certainly ones that deal with economic development or business development in a way, we've made sure to have Douglas Hill on the agenda so that you have an opportunity as a commission to ask questions, to hear from the developer. We have had, obviously, boards and commissions write letters in support, in opposition. Crossroads is in support and is drafting a letter. The Arts Commission obviously had concerns about the sculpture park and drafted a letter that was at the public hearing a week and a half ago or so at the city council meeting. So this is an opportunity for that. It's our only meeting before that 12th deadline unless you schedule a special session. So I just want to put all your options on the table so you're aware. It's an opportunity for you to learn, to take any questions, and also formulate, if you wish, as we talked about at our last meeting, any comments you wish to make of any nature to the city council about the project. And certainly, from my perspective as your staff liaison, this is wholly within your wheelhouse as business development, as has a potential impact on that. So, Mr. Chair, go ahead. If you have-
we got a few other people waiting to get in, Larry and Andrew.
Yeah, we will get them in, so. And Andrew? Is Tammy's not.
Tammy just joined.
Tammy just joined? Okay. I'm keeping track of all these rosters.
All right, now I can hear you. I can be on video for a minute, and then I'm gonna have to get on the move here.
Well, we just walked through process, Larry, so it's a good time.
I heard you. I was actually listening. You just didn't let me in. So I'm good.
Wouldn't be the first time, Larry.
We're sick of seeing your face, Larry.
Exactly.
So before I turn it over, Mr. Chair, members, is there anything you want to ask me? I'm here for questions the whole time, or do we want to go right to the development team for their conversation with you all?
Do you guys have anything that you'd like to ask first, or should we have them say what they have to say and then?
Let's let them start.
Yeah.
So with that, Mr. Chapman, team, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to really sit and answer questions. We don't have a huge amount to present. We've been doing that quite a bit. And so I think our focus today really wants to be on answering questions you may have. As time goes on, we're getting the chance to sit down with smaller groups and make sure that things they're hearing are true and they really represent what we say we're going to do and what the project's really going to look like. We're happy to keep moving along. We continue to move forward as though this is going to be a successful project. We have our interactive art people, the Montreal company, Daily TJC coming in town. If you Google Montreal musical swings, you get an idea of some of the things the company does. We're going to look at making this some really cool interactive play area in the gathering space and other public spaces. And then, we're doing little things that we haven't had a chance to do before. We sent out a team to mark the trees we can save along Shady Creek. We're going to focus on exactly what the improvements along Shady Creek will look like. We're trying to create a super fun natural environment that people can walk along and enjoy. Unlike now, it's almost impossible to get into with the honeysuckle and overgrowth and things like that. And then we continue to just focus on getting questions answered. Joel and Liz, I don't know if you have anything else to say, but we'd be happy to answer questions and make sure there's no misconception about what we're doing.
I would just add, I just put 2 documents in the chat, and Eric knows what those are. So the first is Eric's explanation. He did a great job at the October 5th City Council meeting on what is TIF. There's still some questions out there of what that process is and what that mechanism is, in addition to Larry's presentation to the City Council. So you guys can dive into either of those and feel free to reach out to us. And then we're encouraging people to send their comments directly to City Council. And so I put that email address in there. And then finally, I'm adding the website link to the company that Larry just referenced for public space design that's coming in from Montreal.
So, Mr. Chair, just while they're on that, the Montreal conversation, and Liz, I know that is next Wednesday. We have secured some room at the rec center for those to present. We're confirming the time, so I would expect that that invite will be out today to all the boards and commissions. So this is, SG is bringing the company in, but we do want boards and commissions, council members, if you're interested in what the green space, some of the amenities could be, feel free to attend.
Cool.
So.
And share your ideas. I mean, they're here to do reconnaissance and get ideas about what's really the best thing to do here. You know, we want something that's really unique and becomes improvements that make people want to come visit Webster. I think the best thing we can do is have as many people come and visit Webster as we can get. I think that's the best way to improve all of our business. And I will tell you, we had a really great TIF commission meeting last night. You know, I think people are finally getting to understand the nuances of how tax increment financing works. I'll tell everybody, you know, people probably don't remember, but a little over 20 years ago, the building that's now 20 Allen Avenue, the office building, and the retail below it, the bread company strip center across the street, that was the result of a TIF. And it helped the developer do something that you know wasn't going to happen otherwise, and the city got a free parking garage out of it. So, you know, there's always ways to work together in these public-private partnerships, and we'd like to do the same thing with our development and work to help the community get better.
For everyone's reference, that's Dee Mao, Layla, and that building, and then the Breadco building across that.
Right.
Eric, I would just add one more thing. We talk proudly about the fact that Larry and Liz and I all live in Webster, and it's great that we're residents. But I'd also like to remind everybody, you know, I personally have spent the last 3.5 years working with the owners of Olive and Oak for the, you know, redevelopment of the auto beauty space. So your Green Street has invested a lot of energy in really understanding the economic and business dynamics in that specific part of Webster. So it's not just that we're residents here. We've also spent a lot of time kind of understanding some of those variables. So we're not just local in that we live here. We're local in that we really believe we understand a lot of what's going on and why what we're proposing is really good from a business perspective and an economic development perspective. You know, the additional parking for the new businesses and existing businesses and the new bodies for both, and why that's a huge net positive for the city as a whole.
Eric, you might want to update the commission kind of where you guys are with the school district. And I will add that Joel actually served on the school board in addition to being the current Webster Groves School District Foundation president. So he's got some passion to make sure that the school district is taken care of.
Sure. So I'll do that, and Cece has a question, but I'll give the quick update. The school district obviously is a taxing jurisdiction, no different than the business districts, the county and such. So because they are so residential property tax heavy, they're really the largest impact in terms of TIF and the incremental revenue. Now, the way TIF works goes back to that baseline. So the taxes now aren't in the TIF. The whole point of a TIF is it captures the net new, the increment. That's the operative word. However, we do know that, you know, that assessed value now, and that value now is a static number, right? It's not growing with inflation necessarily. So we are in conversations with the schools as for the maximum a TIF can be in place is 23 years. During the course of that TIF, is there inflationary adjustment needed or other things that we can do around the edges of TIF, which has all been done before in Missouri, to help make sure that cost increases with number of kids increasing because of new residents in that area does not negatively impact the school, so that there's not a risk loss there for them throughout the course of the TIF. And those are all things that would be part of the city's, that's not a TIF commission certainly can opine on it, but it's not their decision. That's part of the city's decision with the development agreement. The city can cut an agreement with the schools as well. And then, of course, the school district will likely have an agreement with SG Collaborative because they are one of the property owners within the proposed redevelopment area. So when we think about the deal that is this development, I would say there's probably 32 or 33 different deals that comprise the deal. When you talk about all the property parcels, the owners and the interest and the taxing jurisdictions and such. So, but for the schools, it is very important because obviously schools have been, in my professional opinion, negatively impacted in the past by some TIFs because they took the brunt when cities really wanted to do something. I don't see that happening here. That's really what I call TIFs in the cornfield, right? I mean, developing a cornfield is very simple. It's very easy to do, right? You go build on it. Doing infill like this takes a lot of public infrastructure, and there's ways we can mitigate any loss and hold harmless to that process. So that's what we are negotiating both with the school, and then we'll be negotiating with SG Collaborative.
Hey,
Eric, I
two
have a
little-
question if you don't mind.
Sure.
Do you expect the school to weigh in the school district to weigh in any official capacity on whether they support or oppose this project?
Well, I'll
to
tell
me,
you,
Karen?
that's entirely up to them, but go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, no, Karen, and last night that question came up at the TIF commission. So we do expect them, they have indicated they have a goal to have a position ahead of the November 10th TIF commission meeting, because obviously they're going to take a vote. They have 2 members on the TIF commission, so.
Hey, Eric, can I add 2 brief little things to your as follow-up?
Yep.
Yeah, I would say in general, I'm a little biased, but I really have an immense amount of respect for the school district leadership at central office right now. I think they've done a great job being kind of fiduciary agents for the school. And, there's some school districts where TIFs happen on a very regular basis, and it's just kind of regular course for them, right? They pull their TIF notebook off the shelf and just rinse and repeat. And as Larry said, I think the last TIF in Webster was 20 years ago. So our central office staff that's working through this right now, it's not something they do all the time. So their fact that they haven't put anything out in writing yet, I think is a good sign that they're being good, responsible kind of fiduciaries in there, what they're doing. And I know that they've been engaging a lot with the city and with development strategies and with us. So just give them a little bit of a shout out because they've invested a lot of time and energy. I do think it is worth pointing out one little thing that they really have focused on recently that's very positive is right now there's quite a few parcels in that footprint that actually don't pay any taxes. The gym center is a nonprofit, the city owns some land, the school district owns some land, the university owns some land. So there's a bunch in there that actually doesn't pay anything. And it's important to note that when the TIF gets locked in, if it gets approved, we actually would start paying the taxes on what those assessed values were. So it's not the taxes that are paid that's locked in, it's the underlying assessed value. And even though there's tax exempt properties, those still have an assessed value. So on day one, the amount of taxes that get paid actually do go up.
Okay, can I ask my question?
I'm sorry, yep.
Go
Oh,
ahead,
so, probably a simple one for you all. How many retailers or businesses do you expect to accommodate in your proposal?
Well, it's not a simple question because the market will tell us what they'll do. But we have retail and restaurant space. It's in the neighborhood of 40 or 50,000 square feet in total on the first floor of various buildings. What that will exactly be, we don't yet know, but it won't be an overwhelming amount.
Okay. And then my second question is, the one thing I am noticing people objecting to is the perception of a wall facing Kirkham.
Right, so. I'm gonna
Yeah, so are you
interrupt
gonna make it, are you gonna put windows in it or a parking structure or something?
So let me just respond to it. So very soon, we asked our architects to render that side, the very same image that was floating around on the internet, and that'll be available here any day. We wanted to make sure we captured which trees would remain and not remain, so we didn't paint any kind of a any kind of a imaginative or false image, okay? And so you'll see that very, very soon. It may even be as early as today. The answer is there's 5 levels above the new Central Street, and we've asked to go to 7 because we're going 2 levels down. And what we're doing is we're wrapping units around in front of the parking garage that would otherwise be there. And so people are talking about height, but it really doesn't change the height of the buildings, whether we're at 5 or we're at 7. What it does is allows us to put living units that are going to be beautiful living units in front of that parking garage that would otherwise be the view that you would see. And we've shown lots of cross sections showing this and lots of things, but for whatever reason, we're just unable to get that idea across. And also because of the distance we're set back from Kirkham, we've shown some cross sections that show, if you're standing on the north side of Kirkham across the street from the church and looking into the church back there, you would actually look over the tops of these buildings, because the setback makes them feel a little bit shorter. And many times I've referenced the office building at 20 Allen as the tallest building in town, and it will remain the tallest building in town. Our buildings won't be any taller than that. The other thing, and Liz, I don't know if we've gotten this image from the city yet, the city was able to figure out the height of our buildings as compared to the cell tower that's there. And they actually created a picture for the council that I'd love everybody to see that shows the relative heights of our building against something you can physically see today, which is that cell tower. And I think all of those things will tell you the image will be good, but we're going to share this rendered image with the church. We meet with them frequently. We're getting together with them again, I think next week. And we continue to have a dialogue about what's the right thing to do so that their atmosphere is protected.
But what you would see is the outside skin of a first class A+ apartment building that has windows and balconies and attenuated textures and different facades. And I mean, it'll be as good looking a face that you see from that vantage point as anywhere else, It's
Fine.
not a concrete brutalist structure with no windows like some people would like you to.
Right, the sooner that gets out, the better.
Yes.
And if I can just,
Put plants on it. On those balconies.
So I don't want to stop questions, and please ask your questions. I just, on that point, part of the process of Douglas Hill is, once, if the council were to vote in December and approve this, right, that is not it. The buildings as they're developed all come back through the normal process, no different than you want to add on to your house. What's it going to look like? The ARB is going to be involved in the design pattern and look and feel of these buildings. So there is still public process for many years ahead here on what this looks like in such.
Yeah, it's just that I live on the north side and see no problems. But people that live on I live on the south side and see no problems, but everybody that lives on the north side's got the big voice going on. And it's mostly that they see a slab in the presentation. So, I'm just hoping there'll be some architectural renderings that can ease their tensions.
Any other questions?
So I think this is self-evident, but I just want to ask, so assuming all of this goes through, at the end of the day, SG Collaborative will own that entire piece of property. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, until we sell off the townhomes and sell off the condos. And if there's an office building there, we'd probably sell that, but all of the long-term ownership of the apartments we plan to own for the long term. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And to clarify again, there's a development agreement, which is the contract between the city and the developer. We have the staff presentation to the council will include, that vocal assertion there that you have heard codified in the agreement. So for that part of that negotiation.
Yeah, because that's another concern I hear, and maybe you have heard it too, that that you guys, even though you live here, you're gonna all leave us after you finish.
And flip the property.
And flip the property and we're
make a great
screwed.
profit.
Yeah. So I've been trying to tell people that's not likely, but your question is well taken.
Is there any thought of potentially selling the space on the first level? That way those business owners could own their space kind of as like, individual units? Yeah, I mean, kind of condos, but for businesses.
I don't know if you want to do that with businesses.
We wouldn't,
No,
we wouldn't.
I've gotten a lot of talk on that, but they've been interested in that, some Webster business owners, because so many Webster businesses are just rented and most of them don't own the businesses.
Right,
So,
right. That would be kind of, that would
As
be
far as the property.
revolutionary. You should consider.
Just, but go ahead.
Larry?
Well, I mean, I'll answer that as best I can. The answer is, if it makes sense to do, that's something that is doable. It isn't, it's been tried in St. Louis in many, many occasions and not very successfully, unfortunately. And other markets, bigger markets, it works pretty well. And I'm not sure why. Just like even the condominium market in St. Louis has not been particularly robust, residential condominiums compared to other markets. But we would be open to anything if it made economic sense, is what I'll tell you.
Is there a St. Louis model or, you know, St. Louis regional model that's somewhat similar that you guys consider a really good success?
Not really. Most of the things that we're seeing are from outside the St. Louis metropolitan area. There's a lot of things being planned that are similar, and they started something across from the Galleria at Boardwalk that is somewhat similar in terms of concept. The way they went about it didn't focus, in my opinion, enough on the pedestrian experience. And so that's really where our focus is, because Webster Groves is really more pedestrian and walkable friendly. And they really couldn't do that there because there weren't neighborhoods that could walk to it, you know, just from a practical standpoint. But there is a city in Dublin, Ohio that has a lot of characteristics that are like this. It's perfectly flat, so they don't have to deal with the side of a hill, but it's one that I've looked at quite a bit. And there are others like that. I could give you some examples. You could Google if you like.
Yeah, that also leads me to my next question, and I would be interested in other examples. I know, like with the Boulevard across from the Galleria and like Ballpark Village on a much larger scale. These all are great. And then we get done with phase one and nothing happens. I mean, is that a possibility with these? Is this a phased project? And how do we guarantee that all of the phases, you know, make it to completion?
Well, you can't guarantee anything. What you have to do is you have to set it up so it incentivizes that occurring. So if you think about it, let's take the TIF as the underlying financing vehicle. The TIF is going to pay for all of the infrastructure improvements that have to go in the first phase. If we don't complete all the phases, we will not pay off that TIF and we will not get that investment back. The city doesn't invest in that, we do. And we only get paid back if we successfully implement. The question was asked, you know, why don't you just do it all at once? There's a couple of problems with that. The first one is financing. If we built every project at once, we would cannibalize ourselves by competing with ourselves and drive the market down. So you have to do it in phases, or you couldn't really finance it effectively. You couldn't get somebody to finance building A because it's competing with building B, if you follow what I'm saying. So you have to do it in phases, and you have to deliver things to the market so the market absorbs it. But everything about this project incentivizes completion, and it's how we will actually get to the point where we make money. And we won't make money until we build the whole thing, honestly.
Chair, if I can just add to that from a city perspective, because that question has come up. There are 3 phases called RPAs within the TIF. RPA 1 is where the vast majority of the development is going to happen. And that's really the area to the north and then some pieces on the south along Pacific. The vast majority of that 15 acres, that's also where the infrastructure investment is, right? I mean, RPA 2 and 3, the later phases are really about the buildings that SG will build. But the public investment is all in that RPA 1 footprint. I should say all within RPA 1 to both acquire, but then deal with, we're going to build on hills and rock, you know, I mean, and then the floodplain improvements and such that need to happen. The notion of the risk of that has also been noted for staff, and we are working with our council to do our best at finding the mitigation measures to make sure all those guarantees that Larry mentioned or mitigation measures are included in the development.
Anybody have any other questions? Liz, I saw you come up. Do you have something to say?
I was just gonna say, the development that Larry referenced in Dublin, Ohio is called Bridge Park. So I'm gonna put that in the group chat, just so you guys, there's a couple developments in Dublin, so I want to make sure you guys are looking at the right one. I'm trying to, we had a cool PDF. I'll send it to Eric after this so he can send it out to you guys, but it's pretty impressive community. Other than that, if you guys don't have any questions, thank you so much for your time and for what you guys are doing for us, for our city. I will add the Chamber of Commerce made an official endorsement to the City Council on October 5th, and the Crossroads Business District wrote a letter of support to the City Council. So if you guys individually or collectively are so inclined, we would love for you to get that word to the council. And I put the email address in there. So we appreciate you.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Larry.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great day.
Thank you all.
So, Mr. Chair, just to come back to that, this is, they've obviously made their presentation. I'll move it back over to attendees, but
Sure.
a chance for you all to discuss. If you do wish to make a collective statement, I would encourage us to look at that at this time. On whatever, even if it's just we have concerns or we have questions, or if we want to schedule another meeting, if you want to do that. So I don't want to have you have the clock run out on you and not have that opportunity.
Sure. Oh, what do you guys think initially?
I'm
I mean, not initially, it's been going for a long
It
time.
I'm
is-
100% on
is-
board. You can put me down.
is part of the trade.
That's what I wanted to see.
We're gonna make a, not a recommendation, but we are going to put together a list of comments from businesses, because as I said in our meeting, that, we're, direct neighbors, but we're not just direct neighbors. We have people that live in this whole thing. So I don't see it right for us to endorse or not endorse, but we're gonna put together a list of comments. They can be anonymous or name said, and go with that. In general, I personally am for it. I mean, as a business, to have 1,500 people live walking distance to your business, sounds like a pretty nice thing to me. My biggest concern really is that it's built well. I think of what Kirkwood did in the old Target space over there.
What is
And
the old Target space? Old Target.
right across from City Hall.
Yes,
Not-
Where we
not-
get
Bar
the
Louie,
plaza.
Yeah.
right by the
And
train
next-
station.
And next
Okay.
door, there's a big apartment complex and all of that. And that was probably 20 years ago, or if not more.
Right,
And, I don't know how those buildings are holding up, but they look like they're holding up very well. And my biggest worry is you get builder grade crap in here, and in 20 years, it looks like
Right.
shit, and it's not good. And I don't know how to get any kind of guarantees of that, because they are going to obviously build things economically, but we don't want them that economically.
we want a quality
we want quality.
lasting.
Yes,
I mean, there's so many buildings from the 1950s. The Y building comes to mind that was torn down. And things on Washington University campus, when they were built in the 50s, they really did a rotten job. And some of those buildings are just coming down now.
Mhm.
I mean, that's not very long
no.
for a building.
Well, I mean, and you can look at stadiums. I mean,
Yeah,
stadiums don't last but 30 or 40 years
Right.
before
right.
they're looking to rebuild them. So I don't know. I mean, that's my personal biggest concern. I've talked with them. I've met with both Liz and Joel, personally sat down with them for a couple hours and had discussions about this. And so I'm pretty well versed. They've convinced me on a lot of things, but that's the one thing that I just.
There still has a little thing.
It's a variable that,
You really don't know until it's, yeah.
no,
Until it's gone, yeah.
Until
It's out, yeah.
it's all gone. And, there's nothing they could say that could convince me one way or another on that, because we just don't know. We just don't know where
Is
to.
there anything that can be written in the agreement to make sure we have a quality, long-lasting construction?
Top of my head, I don't know. I mean, all the
Yeah.
buildings will have to meet the code, so there is
Right.
the quality of materials that must meet code, you know, obviously you can't have reused drywall that's wet or things like that, but you know, speaking to, you know, stud materials, things like that, I just don't know off the top of my head if
Yeah.
there is anything,
Yeah.
so, but I've got it written down as one of those things to.
You know, Tim, your voice is really important because, well, other than on the Zoom, we've got Tammy, right? You are the business owners, right? And you are, I was surprised when I went to the business, trade association. I would think 1,500 new customers within walking distance would just light up everyone's eyes. And I certainly didn't see it at that. I didn't see like, wow.
Well,
Of course, it's 5 years down the road.
Well, but you've got at least 4 of the people there, Fran, I mean, is that about right? That are living in the redeveloped
Right.
zone. So,
Oh, you mean business owners?
They're
Yes.
looking at losing their locations.
Right,
Sure.
right. But I mean the ones south of the railroad tracks. I had to do that north-south
I know.
thing too.
Depends which way you're sitting too,
Right.
no, just.
I would think, you know, I look at stuff.
We have
It's the
so
same
many
thing.
reality is reality,
It's-
On that side of the track. I mean, you look at something like Pino's Palette, you know, a walkover thing. I mean, that's a difference between thriving and struggling, in
It
my
can be.
opinion.
It can be.
Yeah. All right.
So that's
Who else?
where I
How
sit.
about Tammy and Andrew and Cara and Pam? You have any pro
Any thoughts or
con?
opinions?
I'm all for development, new customers and things like that. Just from the start, I'm not in love with this Main Street design. I feel like we've got 2 main streets already in Webster. It just, the layout, the design, the look of the buildings, it just doesn't feel nice. It looks like Crate and Barrel. And I think we could do better.
Okay.
I mean, I like it. I'm for it. I'll support it if the community wants it. But just personally, I feel like it's lacking something.
The only thing I'll say is unfortunately that the back is against the wall with the
Yeah,
TIF.
time, I was gonna say that.
Right.
The TIF, you know, as of the 31st of December, will no longer be available for that area. So without that, that means this area will never be
Developed.
redeveloped. So,
I just want to caveat that one bit. So you're
Sure.
correct that the whole area that we're talking about all the way to Kirkham would be off limits for a TIF in that entirety.
Mhm.
If this project were not to happen, the TIF can still be applied to what would be the southern portion off of Pacific.
Mhm.
I would say that the difference there is if that's going to happen, it's likely not going to need very much TIF. It's a different type of site, but also there's a question about, is it feasible if you don't have enough space and other real estate to sell and develop in that
Mhm.
area? So I've heard that, and certainly many folks have brought that up, and I want to be very clear. The city could say no to this and look at just do the Pacific and use a TIF in that prospect. That probably wouldn't have the same type of impact and return and potentials, but also then that still leaves, and one of the advantages of TIF, the improvements to the Shady Creek area that will be needed regardless, the
Mhm.
Gore culvert, the area along the boardwalk, cleaning up that nature space. Essentially, TIF is creating a public-private partnership to help fund those infrastructure investments. If the TIF is not there, then the public, whether it be us, the county, the sewage district, you know, getting FEMA grants, we have to come up with that other money wholly on the public side. So I'm giving you the whole scope there of what TIF does in terms of those in the area, and just to make sure everyone's clear, I don't want it to be assumed that it's a one and done forever. There are alternatives, but they just come in much different scale and opportunity.
right, so what you're basically saying is half the land
Half the
would be
Exactly.
available to do, which all of a sudden takes away a lot of the business could be there, a lot of the people that could be there. And developers wouldn't be as interested in the area itself.
It's probably not as attractive from a cap rate. I mean, if
Right.
it's half the size,
Right.
so.
Right.
And you lose the real green space opportunity is into that Shady
Yes,
Creek area.
Sure.
So if a developer comes in and wants to maximize profit, of course, they're looking at more buildings, you know, on a smaller area with less green space than this project. will
Right.
represent. So,
I've been supportive of the development since the beginning. In fact, I kind of wish that there was a little more public space, sort of like the Kirkwood gathering space across from City Hall. But I'm looking forward to more detailed architectural stuff. I might have missed that somewhere along the way. I was happy to hear that something's supposed to be available the next few days. But I don't know whether the Business Development Commission should be sending some public recommendation or approval of the project.
Say that again, Pam?
I'm not sure that the Business Development Commission should be sending in or making public the
Okay.
approval of the group for the project. I'm just not sure. I know it's sort of an external group, but it is sort of quasi-official or, you know, certainly associated closely with the city. I'm just not sure about that, but I don't know why. If somebody could.
Well, Pam, I think I can help you in a way there, and from my perspective, being new, but it's not been part of our practice, right? We haven't taken large decisions around to the commissions, and the council's been very clear that they want this input, right? I mean, green space, sustainability, parks and rec. When we get these zoning requests in, there is no thing to say, let's go hear from all the different commissions in their area of influence and expertise. So the council said, we've got time with this, let's send these to the commissions for that purpose, right? Now, I'm not saying you have to support it or oppose it, could just be that we've got some concerns or we like this piece, you know, and that's it. Maybe you don't want to say anything. But we've been asked to put that in the process to engage that in a new way. That has not happened. So, and that's something I'll be honest with you, we're gonna have another, and I was gonna tell you this in the city updates, 55 Moody in Old Webster, which is the Bank of America drive-through, is going to be asking for planned commercial to go to a multifamily building in that space. Now, that's a parking concern. There's a nice surface lot. That's density right near that area. I mean, we're gonna have more of these. Old Orchard is going to have these types of developments come into the footprint, the Subaru dealership
Yeah.
there, and I mean, so we're gonna see more of these. So your voice, however you choose to expect it as a commission, you certainly, because the business districts are, I'll use the term parochial, they have a district, right? They have an interest that represents a district. You are the voice of economic development really for the city from an advisory aspect to the council. That's what, this is the group we have, and I see that as your role. I certainly have a staff voice, but you as citizen appointees fill that role. And Councilmember might say
Yeah,
anything right
I'm
there.
gonna add a little bit to that. I think, I think, Pam, where you're getting stuck is sort of saying you have to say pro or con.
Right.
While I'm sure some of my colleagues are interested in pro or con, I'm interested in what it is that you all think is good about this project and not so good, especially in terms of things that we need to think about for a redevelopment agreement. So are there particular things like materials? What are the concerns you have, and what are the things that you think we should really get out of this project because you think it's good, the public space? So that we can ensure that should this project go forward, the kinds of things that you're worried about are addressed and the kinds of things that you really like stay in and are required to stay in.
Yeah.
So has there been any discussion on what types of businesses are allowed or not allowed within this project? I mean, I know Clayton just did that. I don't know where it is. It's like maybe on the corner of Maryland, kind of by the Gray Bar building. And like, it's anchored by a Dollar General, like a fancy Dollar General, but it's still essentially like a predatory dollar store.
It's, you talked about that at the last meeting, Eric,
I brought
that's
that
in the
up.
development plan that we'll be able to.
Yes.
So the city will be able to dictate.
And in the
what goes
zoning
in.
requirements.
Yes.
Right, and it's not on a freeway, as Eric brought up. So at least the Novus development the TIF of 20 years ago, has small independent businesses, Didi Ma, Layla, Kind Soap. You can do Leopard. They're all small independents. And because we're not next to a busy freeway, we can write it in the development agreement, correct, Eric?
Correct. So that would be in the development agreement, and those are things we've identified. Now, finding the right legal terms to do that, right? Because again, city permitting, like the 4th of July parade issue, right? I mean, we have to have a real legal reason to say no to issue a business license and all the permits and such. But that can be done. So we are looking at that language to involve that.
All right, Andrew, I
Yeah,
think.
Andrew
Hannah-
has his hand up.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to echo some of these comments. These are good comments, and I think it's important to consider if we're discussing the kind of input and feedback this commission should have, we need to consider the role and purpose of this commission, right? Which is to be a voice and representatives of the business community. So if this project has great benefit to the business community, we should determine what that is and articulate that, I think. If it has drawbacks, we should determine what those are and articulate those so people can make informed decisions based on impact from the business community. I don't think it's about whether I like or don't like the project or how I feel about the aesthetics. I can comment on all that stuff in my personal capacity elsewhere, which is a little weird, but I mean, that applies to anybody in the room. And I don't think that's what we need to do, but correct me if I'm wrong.
I think you're absolutely correct.
Oh, Tammy has something.
I have one other question. I have, well, two other questions. Well, when he mentioned about 40,000 square feet for businesses and restaurants,
Mhm.
that doesn't seem like a lot to me, but I don't know what the other sizes are of typical ones in that area.
We got some minds thinking here. So
I would say I'm pretty good at arranging those. I mean,
I guess 2,500 square feet.
2,500.
it's all, I mean, and it makes sense kind of because it's gonna be the outside space. I mean, there's going to be something, I don't know what's gonna be inside, but you're not gonna go all the way deep, all the way through these buildings, just like any of our current buildings in Webster don't. I mean, there's something behind it, but it's usually not going to be restaurant or retail or service, from end to end when you're talking about a city block.
So Tammy, what I can, when we look at, and I'll make sure that this file gets to you all, we'll send the files, in the TIF plan, the redevelopment plan, you'll see the buildings that are designated in the renderings. The massive amount of retail and residential would be near Gore, essentially almost right across from Rolling Ridge, maybe just a little bit to the north there. And that area, and then the office building right around the historic building at the corner of the Pacific and Gore. Those two spaces would have the most retail and commercial on first floor available. Overall, there's between the 8 buildings, about 1 million feet of square feet of residential above that and above. So when you look at, you'll see that in the plans, and also the square footage numbers are in the TIF plan. I just want to be clear that Larry and the team can't, come in and say, we're building 8 buildings that are residential, commercial and such. They can change the number of units, but they can't come in and say, we're going to get rid of this commercial building and put a residential in its place. It has to all go back through the start of the process because they would be changing the nature of the TIF that's involved. So there are guarantees by what they have put in the plan and by what the council, if the council approves it, that by law, they have to continue to follow through on the nature of the development.
What is the role of the architecture review board, if not to say materials or aesthetic?
Architectural review board is really looking at facade. So, when they're looking at, if you want to add a sunroom on the front of your house, it's not so much about is the studs the right way in terms of that's a code and inspection issue already built into our system. It's really from the front. Does your plan represent the architecture of the building you're attaching it to? Does it represent the character and community? So right down to, do you get to have windows that have those fake plastic grid lines in them, or do you not, right?
Right,
Those
or
types
you
of,
build like a US bank building in steel and glass.
right.
That must have been before the architectural review. And at least the L is brick, it's not great, but it's.
So they're gonna deal a lot with facades. The internal quality things would be code, and then whatever we can codify in the development agreement would also apply there as well. So, because that would be an ordinance.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what Andrew had said. I know he stepped away for a minute, but I think we really have to look at, is it good for the business community and what are our thoughts and basically what's our opinion there and concerns? my personal opinion, I am for the project. I mean, I've spent time talking to them and I do have still concerns as well. But kind of like Tim said and voiced, I mean, there's not a lot of time on, making a recommendation before TIF. If the TIF doesn't go through, then the project's done, at least for now, right? I mean, that is what it is. So I think that's the first step, and then definitely if it does go through, depending on the development plan, to make sure that our concerns are heard for the business community. So, go ahead.
Okay, I,
Pam,
Oh, sorry,
I
Ken.
I agree. I thought Andrew made a lot of sense. Just in terms of commenting or talking about it just from the standpoint of the business development and business needs in that area.
We are business development, that is the word that we use. So I'm thinking that we should be in support of business development.
I wanted to amplify that. I've been on this commission for 10 years, all right? And over 10 years, how many hours have I spent in these meetings? And we tinker around the edges of issues. How much money are we going to spend for Christmas promotion? How do we deal with the vacancies? Back in 2010, we had a lot of vacancies because of the financial crisis we had in 2009. So we had vacancy ordinances that we discussed ad infinitum. Then we're going to put plaques on historic buildings. Then, we're doing a scavenger hunt. We constantly talk about how do we bring all of the businesses in the disparate parts of Webster Groves together. This is really a meaty economic development. And to amplify what you say, this is economic development. This is increasing the pie, not tinkering around the edges. And personally, I feel like I've spent a lot of time on this commission tinkering around the edges. And this is something meaty that will make a big difference. And I think we'll be proud of it 20 years down the road and say, wow, look what we did. And I think this is a quality company that has a track record, that cares, and we couldn't ask for a better developer. Do they want to make a profit? Yes, this is capitalism.
They should be able to.
They want to make this is a private-public partnership, and the city council and the city has a lot of leverage in determining that it really, and the architectural review board, that it really serves the long-term interests of this city. And I am trusting that this development will take good care of those businesses that are there and surrounding it. And as long as we apply pressure to that they find new homes for these people, that Rolling Ridge is protected in terms of parking, I think we are the Economic Development Commission, and let's do something big and meaty and say yes.
And a rising tide floats all boats. So the current businesses only stand to gain, if you ask me, from the 1,500 people, or even just the people that come in out of curiosity, want more walkability. I want more walkability, and I walk Webster. You saw me walking Webster. So I frankly, when the bank across the street went in, I thought, wow, this is our great opportunity to have a little road that connects us to Llewellyn's, and our business district is going to expand. Well, it didn't really, but but that's how I conceptualize it. Like, let's make a bigger footprint for our Webster Groves community. And this is a solid way. And I also like the fact that we have 3 of those people that live in our community. They don't want to be driving around embarrassed by what
in the
they've
grocery
done.
store being harassed.
Exactly. Or, Larry lives 2 blocks away. He's going to be seeing it from his windows.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think
agree.
we should recommend it. I'm for recommending it.
May I make a proposal to vote? Any other questions on the Zoom? I would like to propose that the Economic Development Commission endorse the Douglas Hill project.
I
Okay,
second it.
We're the business development commission, we'll just clarify that.
a motion, a second. Okay, all in favor on recommending to approve, or recommending to approve Douglas Hill?
Aye.
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 That's pretty good.
Oh,
So,
wow, we
I-
got everybody.
Yes.
I think that's,
Did Andrew raise his? I didn't see
I
Yeah.
think, Andrew, did you raise?
yes, I
So
do.
are we agreeing to recommend the TIF? Is that what we're specifically saying? Is to proceed with the TIF, or are we saying overall as proposed?
Overall,
I meant to say overall.
I'm with her overall.
Okay, now I need to make sure, because I didn't see it. I want to know every single person's vote. So if you raise your hand, please do it again, so I know what we're talking about. So
But I
have to,
appreciate.
I gotta
appreciate-
record it.
Everybody but Tammy. Oh, no,
I-
Tammy too.
Andrew's got something to
Andrew's
say.
trying to talk.
I do appreciate Tammy chiming in. I think it's very important for us to understand exactly what we're recommending. And if it's just, if the voice of the business community is recommending this project as, good for the business community, then certainly, yes, for me.
Yeah, I'm in favor as well. I think we're all in favor, right? I think we just want to stay close with it as far as, what it is now is obviously going to change as we talk about it more, but yeah, I mean, I think we're all in favor, right? I mean, that was what we said.
Yeah,
So,
that's what we said.
all right,
No, I appreciate what you're saying, Andrew, because I have to record exactly what you guys made a motion on. So we don't want to have any misunderstandings.
Right.
the Douglas Hill
right.
proposal as it stands, correct?
Why don't you remake your proposal?
Yes,
Yeah.
just for the sake
Okay.
of formal documentation.
I propose that the Business Development Commission of Webster Groves endorse the Douglas Hill redevelopment project. I think that's what I said.
Yes.
That sounds
Okay.
perfect.
Then you need a
Still
second.
need
And
a
I
second.
seconded it.
And then all in favor, just to vote again, to be clear on with the
Did
word.
everyone hear that, the wording? Everyone, okay, all right.
Raise your hand.
So if you're in
Oh.
favor.
Are you all in favor? Okay,
All right.
okay,
Okay.
all right, we're
Unanimous.
good.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, just to follow up on that, so would you, and I certainly can take this as a staff, hear your voice and prepare a draft for you to look at.
Sure.
About what I've heard today. To Andrew's point, the pros and some of the things to continue to be watched and to be, from this commission's perspective, that the council should be aware to include in the development agreement. And I can put that in the draft, circulate it to you all, make sure we have surmised the project. and
Yes.
What we've discussed. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, because maybe this is a little late, but I've always understood this was a listening phase that we're in. And then all the comments were going to be tweaking their architectural drawings, which it sounded like they're even getting one that's coming out today that shows something different.
So yes, there are things that are changeable yet, and certainly what the building looks like, what plan is, for facade and such.
Outdoor, yeah.
All that will continue to be codified over time as it comes for permitting and such like that. There are things that get to the feasibility of the project. So, and certainly this is council's decision on how they deal with this, but heightened density. The developer has said, because we have lots of folks, let's drop this to 3 stories. Heightened density, and that question has come up. That's one the developer said, if we take stories off, either we have to fill more land with more buildings, or the project's not feasible. We don't do it, with this height. So there are things that become decisions now embedded in the approval, the beginning approval, I'll call this, sort of the go forward, that are becoming non-negotiable because of the market, or maybe the parties don't reach an agreement and this doesn't happen. So that's, council member, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's a fair statement of where
Yes,
things are.
I think that's right. There are some things that we absolutely have to make a decision on right now. And we're listening now to the public, frankly, more than we are to developers, because we're to the point where we're very close to having to make a decision on zoning and the TIF. And again, we have to wait for the TIF commission. And there are real limitations on the project based on what we do in some of those things. What is still kind of a listening phase is what goes into the redevelopment agreement.
Yeah, it's just that when you listen to the public, that I hear it's all about aesthetic. And aesthetic isn't really what you guys are dealing with right now. You're dealing
Well, we
with
are to
other
some
things.
degree in that the redevelopment agreement can require some things about the aesthetics. So, yeah, so frankly, I'm listening to everything everybody has to say to figure out what might need to go into the redevelopment agreement, in addition to inform how I end up voting on these things.
If every apartment has to have a balcony, we can write
Right,
that.
Yeah,
or it has to be
exactly.
brick.
Right.
I
It
mean,
has to
yeah,
have-
does it have to
it
be
has to
brick?
have- be brick.
Exactly.
It has to have a lot of windows. It has to,
Yeah, 500
have a
parking spots,
concierge
1,000
service
parking
for
spots, whatever.
everyone.
Good deal.
Yeah, and so I will just, one other thing I will say is that, developer, I think, is still listening, but that the developer went through a process last summer of doing a lot of listening and then
Yes,
has
during the
chosen to take,
pandemic, yes.
some of that into account and basically said some of it they can't. So I'm also not expecting that everything they hear in the listening session is doable for them in terms of interests.
That's fair, yeah. Let's move on to city business roundtable, because we're gonna run out of time and that's coming up pretty soon.
Well, it is, and so I wanted to bring
What
this
is
up.
the date?
So our original date was next Thursday, but we have 3 issues that have arisen. So one, this is, from my perspective, a little irksome here at city. I'm having problems pulling our business list, which is irksome. I don't know why. So this is a business process improvement for us to work on. So this has not been noticed yet, and I do want to propose, the second reason is 2 other things. I want to move the date back, okay?
Okay.
So either the week before Thanksgiving, or I'm thinking that first week of December after Thanksgiving. And I can check on space. And the other 2 issues are, our staff time has been consumed with Douglas Hill. Really, this last week have been big Douglas Hill things. So we will get this on and done, but it's going to take a few more things. Also, my friends who work at Treasury have indicated that the final rule on ARP funds is imminent. And there will be some, this is the big federal funding and so these are the guidelines we must follow. And there might be some changes to how they can be applied to economic development entities, meaning business impact. Is that, I have, if I'm thinking of Tim's business, does he have to show a loss, or can I just account for a general economic downturn, right? So what I don't want to do, and certainly this is a listing, but I don't want to start creating a false expectation for how the money can be used if there's going to be a change in that, how that is done. And so because that is imminent, my friends have said within likely the next week, that final rule, that will help us change the surveys a little bit and the questions we want to talk about and guiding businesses to the right spot in terms of thinking, maybe we can't pay for a new sidewalk, which is, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to be very clear that if we're going to talk about that in the roundtable, I don't want to have false expectations created and a bunch of mad businesses at the city that we can't do, what may have been a consensus. So
Eric, do you think it makes sense to have that roundtable the week after our next meeting? And then we can talk about it at our next meeting and get some input on some of the
totally,
questions?
yeah, totally fine with that. I mean, I don't want to go into the next year because ARP funds, we do, my opinion, next calendar year, we need to have the council start to move on expending. So I want to get this done and in, and I am not a fan of just keep pushing things out and, a year from now we'll have this thing happen. But I also recognize that we've just got such a pounding impact of big decisions that the staff need to spend some time on. Namely, we've been working on drafting our development agreement, and so for the council to review at some point here. So that's just taken up a big chunk of my time and Dr. Peoples' time. So
The problem I'm gonna say here is, December 9th, if you're a business, that's not a time you want to have a meeting. Nobody's coming to your meeting.
Yeah.
No,
I agree.
no one's coming. I mean, we do the week before Thanksgiving, it's gonna be better for most people. Yeah, but we just wouldn't get the turnout that we'd like if we do it.
Should we move our next meeting up instead of have it, because it's basically backed up a week because of Thanksgiving? Should we move it up? Well, that doesn't really work either, because that's the week of Thanksgiving. If we met
When
that
is
week
the next
before.
meeting?
So the next meeting was meant to be Thanksgiving Day on the calendar. So obviously it got moved. If you look at the agenda here, it's set December 2nd, a week
Okay.
later. My thought is, Tim, and I don't disagree with you, my thought was to get in right after Thanksgiving, that Monday or Tuesday. I know we're still in the holiday season. Our business list is huge. So this is my technical, I could see the damn, excuse my French, see the damn list. I just can't pull it for some reason. It's really driving me up the wall. So I'll get that figured out. But my point is, I think we can still have a productive roundtable, I think, with those that will come, because also in this will be invited those who do business with the city. So there's a load of contractors and such, because part of this is also our business process improvement, right? People that are doing business with us. So I think the list is well over 40,000.
Oh my.
So I don't expect a if we get 100, I call that success, right? But I mean, my point is that I think we're gonna get a sizable enough people in the room to have a quality conversation.
Okay. That's fine.
If we look at that week, if we want to move the second or move up ahead, I'm fine with that. We
I
can have
agree
a-
with what you're saying, Tim, though. It's getting the year end, that maybe
Yeah.
doing it that week before Thanksgiving is probably the best bet.
You know, and as you said, we can have a special, what did you call it? I'm sorry,
we can have this group meeting again.
special
Yeah,
meeting,
yeah.
before it, so we can all discuss questions and whatever we want to put on the survey.
Mhm.
So I'm fine with meeting, you know,
Next
3 weeks from now, you know, or 2 weeks from now, so that we can have some time to put that together
Yeah,
for a special meeting.
yeah. Well, I think that'll be a better time suited meeting than December 2nd. I mean, even then, we're getting into
I agree.
the holidays. So maybe we cancel the December 2nd meeting and then we see what's available as far as the time to meet in between now and when that business roundtable will be, not now, but you know, like Tim said.
So I just want to, what I think I'm hearing is do the business roundtable before we have the Thanksgiving week.
Yeah,
Oh,
which means,
absolutely.
Okay, just make
which
sure-
means we have to
It's
meet
either
like in
that
a
or
week.
January.
And then
problem.
move up our business development commission meeting
Sure.
from
Can-
December 2nd to like the week before that. That way it gives time to talk about the business roundtable.
2 weeks before that.
2 weeks before that, yeah.
Doesn't have to
November
be a
4th
Thursday,
or
does
5th
it?
or something.
That's next week.
I mean, it doesn't have
You
to
could
be,
do it
it's just,
Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Of course, a lot of people travel. but-
But isn't the purpose of the meeting to discuss the roundtable?
yes,
Well, then the roundtable is gonna happen November 26th or something?
Well, so if we look,
Yeah, when's
I've
Thanksgiving?
taken the week of Thanksgiving
Fifth, I
off,
think.
just so you know, I am gone the week of Thanksgiving, so
The week of,
the week
right.
of Thanksgiving,
So it has to be the week.
so we would be looking probably at the 18th of
Okay.
November, which is fine.
As an
Webster
event.
as an
Okay.
event, and then I will circulate the survey to you and some of my postulated questions. Again, we haven't seen the rule yet, so these aren't the changes, these are the
Mhm.
originals. But essentially either next week or early the week following, we would need to
So we
reconvene.
either meet the 4th or the 11th is what we all have to,
or we could do a different day other than Thursday,
or
but.
another day than Thursday.
Mhm.
And also, we could just call the meeting when those that can be here, can be here.
Sure.
We'll make, if we don't have quorum, we're not making any decisions other than discussing what survey questions. That's not business, that's just planning.
Sure,
So business roundtable would be in the evening.
There's a morning.
Morning.
It's a morning.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the 18th. And you've secured a location?
Yep, it's a, Webster is still open. So we have
Okay.
the East Academic Building at Webster, which is a big building with the multi-AV, so we can do table conversations and free parking in the garage across.
When
the-
you say Webster, you mean the
Webster
university?
University.
yes. Sorry.
Because I thought we were talking about the rec center first.
Yeah, I did too.
Auditorium. And it's not called an auditorium, I can't remember. What's it
It's,
called?
it's a flat level, no, it's not the auditorium, it's a flat level building that's expandable, has the false, I can't remember what the name of the room is off the top of my
Okay.
head. The point being is so that if we don't have a lot of people, we can cut the room in half,
Yes.
feel fuller, but also have roundtable conversations rather than,
Yeah.
sitting like a
Yep.
lecture, so.
Okay.
Good idea.
So roundtable on the 18th, we meet on the 11th.
is that what we're trying to do? Do we have availability to meet on the 11th here?
I'm trying
Is it
to,
something you can see?
let me look at
I'm
the
a maybe for that date. We have something that I might be doing.
calendar, look at this, I'm on the calendar, this is good, where my hat's here, calendar month. Do you remember if we haven't been on November 11th?
I see nothing on my calendar.
Veterans Day?
That's
There's a possibility there'll be a
It's a Veterans Day.
sustainability open house that night, but.
The Board of Adjustment meeting, so that morning we're fine.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
if if we're gonna meet on the 18th, and I'll talk with Crossroads, we may need to move their business district meeting, but I don't foresee that being a problem.
I don't either, unless they want to make the roundtable there.
Exactly. So, yeah.
okay,
But the roundtable itself is gonna happen on the 18th.
That's correct. Crossroads meets on the 18th
Okay.
for their normal meeting, which would be
Oh,
at the
they
same
wanted
time.
to
So
be there.
yes, yes.
Also,
Right.
gotcha. Okay.
And
okay.
obviously I can't be here to staff that and be over there
Yes.
helping you all. So.
Yes.
Why not? Come on.
Okay, so let's plan on that. Our next meeting, November 11th.
So, Mr. Chair, then with that, we'll have two, business development roundtable, obviously the biggest conversation, but I'll also have your draft letter. So we
Yes.
can make a final
Because that needs to go in on the 12th.
by the 12th, so that.
I think that's perfect. So,
What
yeah.
draft letter? What draft letter is this?
Endorsing.
The letter endorsing.
It was the one that
You're
you
gonna wait that
proposed.
long?
Your words.
No, I mean, I'll send it.
I'll set it out.
Oh, okay.
But
The one that you proposed.
Yeah.
I just thought it was done. I thought it was done. I didn't know we had to do an official
No.
letter.
Okay, so November 11th then. I skipped business district updates, I skipped city updates, council updates because we were short on time, but really quick. I mean, I know the most important things with the city and the council, really, it's focused on Douglas Hill. Is there anything else that you guys would like to talk about?
Nothing that's pressing. We're in the midst of DEI and strategic planning both, but we can talk about those next time.
Okay,
The only things I want to bring up, Plan Commission, obviously, I talked about 55 Moody. The other thing is there will be text amendments for the tree and landscape ordinances, which I know are a big deal in Webster Grove, so that will have conversations as well.
It's finally happening.
It's finally happening, so, but anytime we talk about what you could do or not do with trees in this town, that always develops some conversation too, so. So,
all right. Well, great. Well, let's go ahead and adjourn then, and then plan on seeing everybody that can make it on the 11th.
I do.
So-
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
y'all.
You really don't, but thank you for saying that.
Oh.